My wife slept with our divorce lawyer, and now she's claiming half my $2 million estate. She's even threatening to sue me for custody over the $500, $0 house, all while I just found out she's been secretly transferring our bank accounts behind my back. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, staring at the cold screen of my laptop trying to process how everything fell apart so fast. It started with little things, missed calls, late nights, weird messages on her phone that she'd dismiss as work stuff or nothing important. I always had that gut feeling, that nagging suspicion that my wife, Emily, was hiding something. But I brushed it off, convinced I was just paranoid, until I accidentally came across the email thread that made my stomach drop. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was supposed to be relaxing after a long week. Emily was out shopping with her friends, or so I thought. I was just casually browsing her email on the laptop she left open on the kitchen table. Stupid, I know, but I was desperate for a distraction. That's when I saw it. An email from our divorce lawyer, a guy named Mark, addressed to her with the subject, "Next steps in our case." The email was straightforward, but what caught my eye was the way she referred to him, Mark, my love, and some other stuff that made my blood boil. I scrolled further, and that's when I saw the attachments, texts, photos, even a few explicit messages. They weren't just talking about divorce. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about how much they enjoyed each other. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was screwing around with our divorce lawyer of all people. And it wasn't just a fling. It looked like they'd been doing this for months, hiding it from me, planning how to split my estate, my house, everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind was spinning, trying to process how I missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. She'd been acting a little distant lately, but I just figured she was stressed or busy. Now I realized she was probably sneaking around with Mark, planning her next move. I stayed up all night, going over my bank statements, looking for anything strange, anything that could give me proof of her betrayal. And sure enough, I found it. Hidden transfers, secret accounts she'd set up without telling me. She was transferring money behind my back, probably to fund her new life with him. That was the moment I knew I had to confront her. I had all the evidence I needed. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and so damn stupid for trusting her. How could she do this? How could she lie and cheat and then turn around and threaten to take half my money? I'm not some rich jerk, but I worked hard for that estate, $2 million to be precise, and I wasn't about to let her walk away with a dime of it. Not without a fight. I had to think fast, and I knew I couldn't do this quietly. She needed to know I wasn't going to be played for a fool. So the plan started forming in my mind. I'd catch her in the act, expose her to everyone, and make sure she paid for what she did. She thought she was clever, sneaking around behind my back, but I was going to show her just how wrong she was. This wasn't just about money or the house. It was about respect, about dignity. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I'd been a good husband for years, but now I saw her true colors, and I was ready to fight back. The moment I uncovered everything, my mind went into overdrive. I was furious, but I also felt this deep, sinking ache in my chest, like I'd been punched in the stomach. How long had she been lying to me? How many nights had she spent with Mark, whispering sweet nothings, planning her escape? I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. Emily always played the sweet, innocent wife, the one who was supposed to be my partner, my best friend. And now I found out she'd been screwing around with our divorce lawyer, someone I'd hired to help us untangle the mess, not to cheat on me with. I remember sitting there staring at the screen, trying to process it all. My hands were trembling. I felt sick. I couldn't even think straight, but I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this, especially not the money. That's when I started digging deeper into her bank accounts. I had to find out what she'd done with the money she'd been secretly transferring. Sure enough, I found a trail of transfers, small amounts moving into accounts I didn't recognize, accounts she'd set up in her name alone. She'd been planning this for a while, I realized. She was trying to cut me out completely, to drain me of my share before I even knew what hit me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I'd seen, everything she'd said in the past few weeks, how she'd been acting so cold and distant. And then it hit me, she'd been lying about everything. She told me she was just stressed, that she needed space. But it was all bullshit. She'd been sleeping with Mark, probably the entire time she was claiming to be busy with work. She'd been convincing me she loved me while she was secretly planning her escape with her lawyer's help. And now she was threatening to take half my estate, my house, and even custody of my daughter, Lily, who was just 5 years old. I felt a mix of rage and despair. How could she do this to us, to me? I was building a life with her, working hard, making sure everything was perfect. And she was out there cheating on me, lying, manipulating the system to her advantage. I couldn't just let her walk away with my hard-earned money and the house. That was my family's legacy, and I was determined to fight for it. I started drafting a plan, how I'd confront her, gather more evidence, and expose her lies publicly if I had to. Because I knew she'd lie her way out of anything, spin stories to make herself look innocent, just like she was doing now. But even as I was planning my next move, a part of me felt broken. I'd been with Emily for over 10 years. She was supposed to be my partner, my confidant. And now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. I couldn't believe she'd sleep with our lawyer, the man I'd trusted to help us get through the divorce. That was the ultimate betrayal. It was like she'd thrown everything we had away for a quick fling, for money, for some kind of twisted revenge or escape. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to protect what was mine, my estate, my daughter, my dignity. But inside, I was shattered. All those years I spent building a life with her, and she was just using me, cheating behind my back, plotting her escape. I kept asking myself, how did I not see it? How did I miss all the signs? But deep down, I knew she'd been hiding this from me for a long time. I just didn't want to believe it until I saw undeniable proof. Now I had it, and there was no turning back. After I spent that night poring over the evidence, the rage finally started to settle into something colder, determined. I knew I couldn't just confront Emily without a plan. If she was cheating with Mark, the lawyer I hired, to help us divorce, then she was probably planning to spin the story in her favor, to make herself look innocent and me the villain. I had to get ahead of her, gather more proof, and make sure I had the upper hand before she even knew I was onto her. First thing the next morning, I reached out to a private investigator I found online. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't want her to get wind of it. I just needed someone to confirm what I already suspected, that she'd been sneaking around, meeting Mark at secret spots, maybe even meeting other guys. I told the Pi to follow her, to find out exactly what she was up to, and to dig into her financials even further. I knew she'd try to hide everything, but I wanted to see how far she was willing to go. While I waited for the Pi to do his job, I started planning my next move with cold precision. I wanted to catch her red-handed, so I decided to set a trap. I knew she'd be planning to meet Mark again soon, probably at their usual coffee shop or maybe her apartment. I decided to go there myself, just to see if I could find any proof of what she was doing. I didn't want to just accuse her blindly. I wanted undeniable evidence. So I parked outside her apartment, pretending to be just a concerned friend, and watched from a distance. It wasn't long before I saw her slip into her car with Mark. They were cozy, whispering, laughing like they were the only two people in the world. My stomach clenched, but I stayed hidden, taking pictures on my phone. I wasn't about to let her deny it now. She was with him, no doubt about it. This was the proof I needed to confront her properly, to show her I wasn't going to be played. Meanwhile, my mind kept racing. I thought about everything she'd said to me over the years, how she'd claimed she loved me, how she'd told me she was committed to our family. All lies. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. I kept thinking about the money, the house, Lily. She was trying to take it all, just like I feared. She even threatened to sue me for custody of our house, claiming I was an unfit father. That was a lie. I'd never laid a finger on her or Lily. But she was good at spinning stories, and I knew she'd try to manipulate the court. I couldn't let that happen. I had to protect everything I'd worked so hard for. I decided I'd file for full custody of Lily, and I'd fight her in court. She might be manipulating the system now, but I had enough evidence to show her true colors. I also contacted a lawyer I trusted, someone who specialized in divorce and family law, to prepare for the worst. I wanted her to know I was serious. If she wanted to keep fighting, I was ready. The day after my surveillance, the PI handed over his findings. Emily had been meeting Mark at a nearby hotel several times a week. They'd been sleeping together, no doubt about it. The financial trail was even clearer now. She transferred thousands into accounts in her name, probably to fund her new life with Mark. I realized she was trying to cut me out completely, to take everything before I could do anything about it. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I was done playing nice. I was going to expose her, fight for my daughter, and make damn sure she paid for this betrayal. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was tired of being the fool in this story. Emily was a bitch, selfish, manipulative, and ruthless. And I was going to show her that I wasn't going to roll over, that I still had some fight left in me. It was time to take control, no matter how much it hurt. The next few days were a whirlwind. I met with my lawyer, laid out everything I had uncovered, screenshots, bank transfers, the PI's reports. We drafted a plan to confront Emily, but I wanted to do it on my terms. I knew she'd lie, deny, or spin some story to save herself, so I had to be prepared for her usual manipulations. I also decided to go ahead and file for full custody of Lily. She'd been acting increasingly reckless, missing appointments, lying about where she was, and now this affair with Mark. It was clear her priorities weren't with our daughter anymore. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the paperwork, feeling this strange mixture of anger and resolve. I was about to take everything away. From her, her freedom, her ability to manipulate the system, her chance to run away with my money and my house. I wasn't going to let her do that. I'd spent years building a life, a future with Emily, and now I saw her for what she really was. A selfish, manipulative bitch who'd betray her own family for a quick affair and a quick buck. On the day I planned to confront her, I made sure I had everything ready. I sent her a text that morning, politely asking her to meet me at the park near our house. I wanted her to think I was just being civil, maybe even trying to work things out. But I had a different plan. I knew she'd be expecting a typical angry confrontation, so I decided to catch her off guard. I told her I wanted to talk about Lily and our future, how I wanted her to be honest with me. I wanted her to think she still had some control. When she arrived, she was her usual bitchy self, defensive, dismissive, trying to act like she was the victim. She threw her usual insults, claiming I was controlling, paranoid, and jealous. I let her ramble for a few minutes, then pulled out the evidence I'd gathered, screenshots of her messages with Mark, bank statements showing the transfers, the photos from the hotel. Her face went pale when she saw it all. She started stammering, denying everything, claiming it was all a misunderstanding or just business. But I wasn't buying it. I told her straight up, "Emily, I know you've been cheating on me with Mark. I know you've been lying about the money, transferring everything behind my back. And I know you're trying to take Lily and my estate, so don't even bother denying it. I've got enough proof to take this to court, and I will if I have to." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked genuinely caught off guard. But then her bitchy mask slipped back on. She started spinning stories, saying I was paranoid, that Mark was just helping with the divorce, that I was overreacting. She even had the audacity to claim I was abusive, which couldn't be farther from the truth. I'd never laid a finger on her or Lily. That was just her way of trying to turn the tables, to make me look like the bad guy. But I stayed calm, kept my voice steady. I told her I'd already filed for custody, and I was prepared to go to court to get full custody of Lily if she kept lying and manipulating. She started crying, claiming she loved Lily, that she'd never do anything to hurt her. But I saw through it. I knew her tears were fake, just another way to manipulate the situation. She kept insisting she'd done nothing wrong and that I was just jealous or insecure. I let her talk, but I knew her game. I was done being played. I told her she should think about what she wanted to do, because I'd be fighting for everything and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. That confrontation was the turning point. I saw her true colors and I knew I had to act fast. I'd already started preparing for the court case, gathering witnesses, and organizing everything I could to prove her lies. I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger. Relief that I finally had proof, and anger that I'd let her get away with so much for so long. But this was the moment I'd been waiting for, time to take control and make her face the consequences of her betrayal. I was done being the victim. From now on, I was going to be the one in charge. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, consultations, and planning. I stayed up late every night, going over every document, every email, every message she'd sent Mark. I wanted to make sure I had everything airtight before the court date. I knew Emily would pull out all the stops to spin her story. She'd lie, manipulate, maybe even try to turn Lily against me. But I was prepared. I had the evidence, and I was ready to fight dirty if I had to. Meanwhile, Emily's behavior only got worse. She started making threats, saying she'd sue me for half my estate, claiming she deserved it all because she was the victim, and even trying to claim custody of Lily by saying I was an unfit father. That made my blood boil. I knew she'd try to manipulate the court, so I hired a private investigator to gather more evidence of her reckless behavior, her partying, her late nights, her meetings with Mark. In secret, I needed to show the court she was more interested in her new life than being a good mother. One day, she called me in a frantic voice, claiming she was going to ruin me, and threatening to sue for custody of the house, which she claimed was joint property. I knew she was bluffing, but I also knew she'd try to use the court system to her advantage. That's when I decided to bring in my own lawyer, someone with experience in high-stakes divorce and family law. We worked out a strategy to counter her lies and protect my assets. I had to stay one step ahead of her at all times. I also started secretly recording her conversations, just in case. I didn't want to be the guy who played dirty, but I knew Emily wouldn't hesitate to lie or twist the truth. I wanted to catch her in her own words, to have undeniable proof of her manipulation. It was a risky move, but I felt I had no choice. I had to do whatever it took to protect my daughter, my estate, and my reputation. Then, one day, I finally got the call I'd been waiting for. The private investigator had caught Emily meeting Mark at a hotel again, this time in a more compromising situation. I had photos, videos, everything I needed to prove she was cheating, lying, and planning to run away with her lawyer's help. I knew the court would see through her lies now. She thought she could manipulate the system, but I had the evidence to back up everything. I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger, knowing I was finally in control. The court date was set for 2 weeks later. I was nervous but also confident. I knew Emily would try to pull every trick in the book to win, but I had the truth on my side. I sat in that courtroom, watching her lie through her teeth, trying to paint me as the villain. But I also had my own witnesses, friends who saw her reckless partying, her secret meetings, her lies. I presented everything I had, photos, bank statements, recordings. And in the end, the judge saw through her manipulations. She lost custody of Lily, and I was awarded full custody. My estate was protected, and Emily's attempt to claim half was shot down. It was over, but the aftermath left scars. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted. But I also felt a strange sense of victory. I had fought for what was mine, my daughter, my money, my dignity. Emily was furious, of course, but she knew she'd been beaten. She stormed out of the courtroom, vowing revenge, but I knew I'd done everything I could to put this nightmare behind me. I realized I'd been naive for trusting her for so long, but I also learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, no matter how much it hurts. Now, I'm rebuilding my life, focusing on my daughter and my future. I don't regret standing up to her, even if it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I just wish I'd seen her true colors sooner. But maybe that's the lesson. Never ignore the signs and always protect what's yours. Because in the end, nobody's coming to save you. Sometimes you have to save yourself. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I used to think trust was the foundation of any relationship. Turns out I was wrong. Trust is earned, and sometimes it's shattered in an instant. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, especially when it's from someone you thought you knew inside out. Emily's lies, her manipulations, her blatant cheating, nothing prepares you for that kind of blow. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated, I wondered if I'd ever find my footing again. But I did. Slowly, I started putting the pieces back together. The court case was just the beginning. It was about reclaiming what was mine, my daughter, my money, my peace of mind. The financial betrayal was the hardest part. Finding out she'd secretly transferred assets, draining accounts, trying to leave me with nothing. It made me realize how ruthless she was. She was willing to destroy everything just to get her way. That realization hurt worse than the betrayal itself, but it also fueled my resolve to never let her manipulate me again. Since then, I've focused on rebuilding my life. I've cut all ties with Emily. I've also become more cautious, more aware of the red flags I used to ignore. I tell anyone who's willing to listen, don't be naive. People can surprise you, and not always in good ways. Trust only those who have proven they deserve it. Protect yourself, your family, your assets, because if you don't, someone else will do it for you, and it might not be in your best interest. My daughter, Lily, is thriving. She's been through a lot, but she's resilient, just like her dad. I make sure she feels loved, safe, and protected. That's what matters most now. Emily may have lost her battle in court, but she'll always be her mother. I don't dwell on the past anymore. Instead, I focus on giving Lily the childhood she deserves, a life free of lies, betrayal, and manipulations. As for me, I learned a hard lesson about human nature. People are capable of incredible cruelty, but they're also capable of redemption if they're willing to face their wrongdoings. I don't harbor hatred for Emily anymore. I just feel sorry for her, because she lost the best thing she ever had, her integrity, her respect, her family. And I gained clarity. I know now that being cautious isn't being paranoid, it's being smart. This entire experience has made me stronger, more cautious, more aware. I'll never let anyone take advantage of my trust again. I've learned to stand up for myself, to fight for what's right, and to never settle for less than I deserve. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about protecting myself and my daughter from future betrayals. That's the real victory. So if anyone out there is going through something similar, I'll say this: don't give up. Trust your instincts, gather evidence, and fight for what's yours. People like Emily will try to manipulate and lie their way out of it, but the truth always comes out in the end. Be brave, be smart, and remember, you're stronger than you think. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us the most about ourselves. And in the end, that's what truly matters.